Rhythm. You throw in the interception, pick six by Bud Clark, comfortable 13-point lead. And in my opinion, the way that first half went, it's a big drive for the North Carolina defense.
That was the Capital One rewarding performance, and this is a rewarding run as Devorian Barnes is out the gate, inside the 30, to the 10. Touchdown TCU, 75 yards and no flags.
Oof. A bad opening night for Bill Belichick. He had some company from over the weekend, that's for sure, but his debut as a college coach was awful. Good morning, everybody. College football's week one is in the books. Today, the day after Labor Day, means the NFL's first week is just a few days away. The day after Labor Day marks the beginning of what we call in sports talk radio high season. High season is football season, primarily the NFL season, which gets underway Thursday night in Philadelphia and will continue for the next 21 weeks uninterrupted before we get a week off between Championship Sunday and the Super Bowl. It is, for most of us, the best 5+ months of the sports calendar. There's a routine, there's a rhythm to football season. Kids are back in school, everybody's back at work, and of course, football every weekend and many weeknights as well. It goes quickly, from the dying September dog days of summer to those cool leaf-changing, beautiful fall, autumn days in October, to the beginning of holiday season and Thursday to the height of holiday season when it gets colder and it seems like football is on almost every day and every night. Savor it, boys and girls. This time of year is the best. The conversations we have are so much better when there are real games to talk about. The world of hypothetical, it's fun to talk about draft picks and who looked good in training camp practices, but this is so much better. And our team is in a place, it finds itself in a place where it has not been in a long, long time. I've said it a few times over the last few months. This is the most anticipated, well, let me change that. It's the highest expectation season in 25 years. It's probably the most anticipated season since 2012, maybe 2013, maybe 2004, Joe Gibbs's first year back. But in terms of expectations for this team, they haven't been higher than they are this year since 2000. I went and looked this up over the weekend. Per Pro Football Reference, Washington's preseason Super Bowl odds in the year 2000 were the second shortest odds behind the defending champion St. Louis Rams, the greatest show on turf after they won the Super Bowl for the first time in 99. The Rams were plus 300 to win the Super Bowl. The favorite in 2000, Washington, the Redskins, were plus 350, the second pick to win the Super Bowl. And then there was a drop-off. Washington's over-under on wins that year, 11 and a half. 11 and a half. Dion was our skin. Bruce Smith was a Redskin. You had a team coming off a division-winning championship in 1999, off a playoff win over Detroit, and a near divisional round win in Tampa. Of course, the 2000 season did not live up to the expectations. We found out pretty quickly that Dan Snyder was going to be an interesting owner, a different owner, and perhaps a bad owner. The fantasy football offseason didn't really pay off. He was putting vanilla ice cream on Mike Nolan's defense to indicate how soft he thought the defense was. He was ripping Norv in front of the team in locker rooms after games, and the team went 8-8, and Norv got fired before that season ended. Now, this year's odds in what I would call the highest expectation season since 2000 are not what they were in 2000, but Washington currently with the 8th best odds in the league to win the Super Bowl and an over-under win total of 9.5. Clearly the best odds and the best over-under win total they've had since 2000. The expectations, the anticipation are all there for this season. And let's face it, the ownership change had a lot to do with it 2 years ago because it gave us a chance to root for a franchise without suspending true, legitimate, realistic belief, because that's what you had to do during the Snyder years. But it didn't guarantee the ownership change that the team would ever create a sustained run. But I feel like, and I think many of you feel the same, we're at the beginning of a sustained run. And that's because Washington got good fortune. They had number 2 overall, and a generational talent was sitting there at number 2 at the most important position on the field. Jaden Daniels, more than anybody else, is the reason that we're not just, here at the beginning of a season that has high anticipation and the most expectations in 25 years. It feels like this is a continuation of what got started last year and will continue, that this is a run. The league is designed for teams to have a chance at short runs, long runs. Washington avoided that for 24 years. It's really, the biggest indictment, and I've mentioned this many times, that Snyder's greatest accomplishment, if you can even describe it that way, is that it was total destruction laid to this incredible franchise during a time in which the league was designed to prevent it from happening. That's why I've said many times over the last 10 years at least, this franchise under Dan Snyder should be a case study at Harvard Business School. Wharton, they should look at what happened here because it's hard to pull off. Only 2 back-to-back winning season scenarios during the last 33 years, 96, 97, and then 2015, 2016. No back-to-back playoff seasons since the glory years when they went back-to-back-to-back in 90, 91, and 92. The franchise is a complete 180 in 2 years from what it was. And Snyder's departure is a major reason for that, but the reason that this feels like the beginning of something that is sustainable year in and year out is because they had an opportunity to draft Jaden Daniels. I cannot wait to watch him in this upcoming season. The number of potential big spots on the schedule. Week 1, it's the Giants. Okay, it doesn't feel like a massive game, but Fox's number 1 crew will be there. Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady, with Tom Rinaldi and Aaron Andrews on the field. Week 2 is a short week leading into the first Amazon Prime game of the year on Thursday night. Who did they want? They wanted Jaden Daniels, and they'll get him against the Packers and Micah Parsons. Week 3, the Raiders. Week 4, the Falcons. Then week 5, another highlighted 4:25 in the afternoon spot against the Chargers in L.A. And then how about Monday night, the rematch of the Hail Mary game from a year ago, Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels, round 2 on Monday Night Football, October 13th. You get an incredible stretch of back-to-back road games against the Cowboys at 4:25 in the prime Fox spot, and then a Monday nighter at Arrowhead. You tell me if both teams are good and Jaden's playing well and Mahomes is playing well, this isn't going to be one of the highest rated, most watched games of the season. Then you get a Sunday nighter against Seattle. And then how about Detroit coming into town November 9th for a rematch of the divisional playoff game that they got crushed at home as the 1 seed in. You don't think revenge will be on their minds when they step into the snake pit known as Northwest Field on November 9th at 4:25? Then how about a little trip to Madrid for a Sunday morning game against the Dolphins before coming back for a Sunday nighter against Bo Nix, Sean Payton, and the Denver Broncos? And then we get into December at Minnesota. Don't know what Minnesota will be this year. At the Giants. And then 2 of the final 3 against the Philadelphia Eagles. At home on a Saturday, December 20th. Then they're home against the Cowboys on Christmas Day before finishing up at the Link against the Eagles. God, I hope we get to that closing stretch. And the Eagles and Washington are both sitting there at like 11-4 or 11-3. And those two games decide not only a division title, but a 1 seed. It is quite the journey. This time of year is something else, not to mention when it's all over, for the first time in how long, there is an expectation that when the regular season ends, there's more football to be played for our team. I think this is a playoff team. I think even if they're not significantly improved on defense, it's a playoff team. I think they should be better on offense. They improved their offensive line. They added another weapon to the array that they have, which includes Terry McLaurin and a very dependable, rejuvenated Zach Ertz. We'll see what the backfield looks like. I love Austin Eckler. I thought Austin Eckler last year, when healthy, this was a real dynamic offensive football team, and without him, they were. We'll see what the rookie can do. We'll see what Rodriguez looks like, and there's no reason to subscribe to the theory that Jaden Daniels will have a sophomore slump season. That implies that somehow you identified flaws that other teams will identify and somehow take advantage of. I had Dan Quinn on my podcast last week. You're going to hear it at 11 a.m. One of the questions I asked him was about this narrative. Hey, defensive coordinators have a whole off season to figure out Jaden Daniels. Is that a real thing? He answered it. He actually talked about it in detail. You'll hear it at 11 a.m. when Dan Quinn is on the show. I don't see anybody figuring out Jaden Daniels, just like nobody figured out the read option. Remember that in 2012 with RG3? Oh, give defensive coordinators an offseason, and that thing will be done like the Wildcat. It's a fad. More teams than ever line up the quarterback in a dual threat offense. Man, something to be fired up about. This team, this season, the games that are ahead, high profile spots, high exposure spots, football season, best time of the year. I got this from Derek. Derek wrote, Kevin, this is crazy. We, as in Washington, have the highest number of transplants in the NFL. Only 42% of our roster began their career here in Washington, making us the only team in the league below 50%. The next closest team is the Dolphins at 51%. So Derek is, I'm assuming, citing something that is out there that was some sort of study. He didn't mention who did it, but it sounds a little low, but not crazy to me, that 42% of the roster began their career here, 58% of it somewhere else. That means that 42% was drafted or signed as an undrafted free agent here. Everybody else came via free agency, waiver wire, or a trade. He writes, it just shows how many draft picks and developmental opportunities were wasted during the Ron Rivera and Dan Snyder era. Now, under new management, Washington is starting fresh, but the numbers highlight how much damage was done in the past. I pulled up the quote from Ron Rivera 2 years ago, almost to the day, when John Keim wrote a story about the upcoming season, in which the context for it, if you recall 2 years ago, was that with new ownership and no time to make any significant football changes, the season was a lame duck season for Ron Rivera and his staff. And remember, too, part of the context is that Ron Rivera had somehow decided to basically, hang his whole season on Sam Howell's shoulders, his whole future as a head coach, because of some meaningless end of season game in 2022. It was a wing and a prayer, but he was going with it. Here was the quote 2 years ago, almost to the day, from Ron Rivera in John Keim's ESPN.com story. Quote, if we go 8-1 this year and he, Harris, fires me and next year they win the division, and 40 of the 53 players we drafted, and it's the same quarterback, I'm vindicated. Send me my Super Bowl ring. Man, that seemed awfully presumptuous and delusional, really, at the time. Whew, it looks so bad after the fact. They did get almost immediately within, spitting distance of the Super Bowl, 60 minutes away from the Super Bowl in the NFC Championship game. But it was not that quarterback. It was a different quarterback who was much different than Sam Howell. And based on my math, the playoff games against Detroit and Philadelphia, 17 of the 53 players, not 40, 17 of the 53 players on the roster were here with Ron. One thing is for sure, he was not a general manager, nor was really the group of people around him at the time. All right. Thank you for that, Derek. Yeah, that kind of reflects the challenge that Adam Peters and company have had here in the first 2 years, developing a roster. That's why we saw so many changes, but so many short-term changes contractually. We got that situation again this year. There are going to be many opportunities for this roster to turn over again before 2026, but probably more and more the players that they pick will be a big part of the future. They got the most important pick, right? That is for sure. All right. When we come back, Micah Parsons got traded after the last time I was on radio last week, which was last Wednesday. So I do want to talk about it, but I want to use it as a way to get into a discussion about the NFC East. Micah Parsons, I think last year was my number one player in the NFC East. He's not in the NFC East any longer. By the way, there's some questions about his health now as he's getting ready to potentially suit up for the Packers. We'll discuss that next. A little bit about the college football weekend, including Maryland's win on Saturday against Florida Atlantic, which included the debut of freshman star quarterback Malik Washington. Busy day, busy week. We're going to have picks all week long. Max and I will make our season picks, divisions, records, playoff teams, Super Bowl participants. We'll certainly have our Skins season prediction, give you guys a chance to weigh in on all of that. Best week of the year leading into the first NFL week of the season. By the way, the smell test, put it out on my podcast on Friday. 4-0 over the weekend, 5-1 overall for the first college football week. That included Thursday night. Don't get chesty with it because it is a roller coaster during the course of the year. All right, Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. So a trade that rocked the league last week, and it happened after the last time I was on radio last week before the holiday weekend, was the trade of Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers for 2 firsts and a defensive tackle. A good one, but an older one, that's for sure. I woke up this morning to this news that Micah Parsons is, dealing with a lower back issue that may require an epidural injection for him to play in Sunday's game against the Lions. That's incredible. He passed the physical. He had been prescribed when he was in Dallas recently that 5-day prednisone, steroid pack. I've done that before, anti-inflammatory to recover from some of that back tightness. Remember, he was kind of complaining that he was hurt. There are some people that believe this is a way to just, confirm that he was banged up and not completely healthy. I don't think you go through prednisone 5-day packs and maybe an epidural injection just to carry out some sort of ruse. I don't think you do. The trade, look, I'm going to play for you a gentleman who was on with me yesterday. Bobby Belt hosts radio in Dallas on 105.3 The Fan. He covers the Cowboys for DallasCowboys.com. We actually previewed he previewed the Cowboys season without Micah Parsons, but I talked to him yesterday because I had this sense that the trade from the outside looking in was a disaster, but from the inside looking out, meaning Cowboys Nation, wasn't that bad of a trade. This is what Bobby told me on my podcast yesterday. The reaction from outside Cowboys Nation was hypercritical, but much different than the reaction from inside Cowboys Nation. Describe that, perspective. What was the reaction of Dallas fans to the Micah Parsons trade?
I think it was something that initially, if there's any level of irritation, the strongest level of irritation among the fan base is probably the return they got and when they made this move. But I think it got to a point for the majority of the fan base that they either their thoughts on it were, I get it, or good riddance. And so there were a lot of people, I think, who had become frustrated with Micah Parsons throughout this process. Even before this particular process, I think a lot of people were frustrated with some of the stuff relating to his podcast, relating to the way that he's interacted publicly with, other players on other teams. And, he's interviewing Jordan Love not long after they got destroyed by the Packers and different things like that. And so I think a lot of fans were really, really frustrated with him by the end. And so while nationally, I think everybody has been kind of holding up the narrative of the Cowboys are idiots and they've made one of the worst moves of all time and things like that, there's a lot of fans who are just kind of like, okay, go ahead. We could stand the cap space and some extra picks. That's more valuable than Micah is.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I kind of read it the same way, even from afar, based on a lot of the reactions afterwards from people, that cover the Cowboys. Can two things be true simultaneously? Dallas fans are kind of okay with this trade, but they also think Jerry is a problem in handling all this.
Yeah, Jerry's not a winner in this. It's I don't want it to sound like that. It's that the Cowboys fans would view it as two losers. They initially, I think it was Jerry was the enemy, Micah was the hero, and then as the negotiations wore on and different things happened, it was more just like there's no winners in this at all. We're unhappy with Jerry, we're unhappy with Micah, and just because you move on from Micah after we've become frustrated with him doesn't make Jerry the winner in this situation. So yeah, I think there's still a ton of frustration with Jerry, but I think those two things are not mutually exclusive. They're frustrated with Jerry, but they're also on a level happy that Micah is out of here. Not even that Micah's out of here. I think people wanted it to work here, but recognizing he got $47 million. So you're talking about, all right, which is better, Micah contributing and taking up $47 million of the cap, or is it better to say, let's save $47 million a year, let's get a Pro Bowl defensive tackle, and let's add 2 first-round picks? Like that team, those resources are probably going to be more valuable to the Cowboys winning football games than Mike on his own.
That was Bobby Belt, 105.3 The Fan, with me yesterday. That was before this news about the back injury came out. This would be crazy if it turns out Parsons has lingering lower back issues. It would make Jerry look great. He's already passed the physical. This trade is final. The Packers signed him to a 4-year, $188 million contract extension, 120 guaranteed. He's getting paid $47 million a year. 47. You know, when I saw this trade, I'm like, I don't think I would have given Micah Parsons $47 million. And we've talked about this idea that maybe Micah Parsons is not the most respected, the most beloved guy in the locker room. Bobby spoke to that. The bottom line, though, is if you knew this about him, I'm not even referring to the injury. If you knew there was going to be a challenge in getting him signed and he wasn't the best cultural fit for your crazy franchise to begin with, you would have gotten a lot more for him had you traded him before the draft. I actually asked Bobby that. He said the talk in Dallas is it would have been at least 3 first-rounders. They would have gotten a 3rd first-rounder for Micah Parsons had they done this deal prior to the draft. So Parsons is out of the division. Kenny Clark is a better run stopper, just if you're wondering. And the Cowboys' biggest issue defensively, maybe the biggest issue on their team, similar to our team, is they can't stop the run. I mean, go back to the playoff game 2 years ago, Dan Quinn as the defensive coordinator, and they got run on, they got thrown on, they got Jordan loved to death, 48-32 in that wild card round playoff game. They've struggled to stop the run, and they knew they were going to have a difficult time with Parsons on the field stopping the run. Kenny Clark is a better run stopper. Yeah, but Micah Parsons is generational talent as a pass rusher, no doubt. I kind of viewed it as they screwed up again, like Bobby said, by not doing it at the right time. But ultimately, were they going to pay him $47 million? He makes $7 million more per year than Myles Garrett, $6 million more a year than TJ Watt. I think Parsons is great. He's only the 2nd player in NFL history to have 12-plus sacks a year in his first 4 years. Reggie White was the first. He only played in 13 games last year and had 12 sacks. All right. So I'm using this as a way to not only talk about the Parsons trade, but to say with him out of the division, I want you to tell me who you think the best player in the division is. Now, I'm going to give you my top 5 NFC East players. Max is going to do the same. And then at 301-230-0980, I want your number 1 NFC East player. And also, if you want, you can tell me where Jaden ranks on the list of NFC East players. I'm going to give you my NFC East rankings first, and then Max will give you his, and phone lines are open, 301-230-0980. You're going to hear my conversation from late last week with Dan Quinn at 11 a.m. So number 5 for me, by the way, there are a lot of possibilities for the top 5 in the NFC East. A ton of possibilities. There are guys that I left off this list that I think many of you would put on your list. But this is my list. Number 5, Dexter Lawrence, the New York Giants. I think that Dexter Lawrence is one of the most underappreciated, maybe underrated players in the league at any position. I think fans inside the NFC East know how good he is. I think because the Giants haven't been successful, I think most fans around the league are like, yeah, I've heard of him, but is that the guy in Dallas or is that the guy in New York? You know, DeMarcus versus Dexter. And DeMarcus isn't in Dallas anymore. He's in Seattle. Dexter Lawrence is at times impossible to contain. He's a dominant interior defensive lineman / nose. He is a great pass rusher, but he's an absolute monster against the run. He's 27 years old, and personally, I think his underrated, underappreciated years are going to be behind him starting this year. It's too lazy as an NFL fan not to appreciate how dominant Dexter Lawrence is. He's number 5 on my list. Number 4, and this may be a bit controversial, but I think in terms of the absolute upside ability, this guy is going to be, if he isn't already, the best receiver in the division. Number 4 for me is Malik Neighbors. Yeah, 2 giants in my top 5. I think Neighbors is on his way to becoming, the next LSU elite with Chase and Jefferson. He had 109 catches last year. 109, most ever for a rookie, with some of the most horrendous quarterbacking you could find last year in the NFL. And not just one bad quarterback, 4 that played last year, and they were all terrible. He gets open without any effort. He's special. He is going to be spectacular. And if they have a quarterback, and who knows if it's going to be Jackson Dart, Russell Wilson, Neighbors to me is more upside than CeeDee Lamb or A.J. Brown in the division. Number 3 on my list of the top 5 NFC East players, Dexter Lawrence 5, Malik Neighbors 4, Jaden Daniels. I didn't put him at 1. This is not necessarily the most impactful players. It's the best football player. The best football players in the division. You could make the case that Jaden, the impact he has at the position he plays, is the most impactful. But I do think there are 2 players that just sort of pound for pound are just slightly better than Jaden. It's self-explanatory why he's in the top 5 for me, but I've got him at number 3. Number 2, and this was, to me, tough between 1 and 2. I put Saquon Barkley at number 2. I think he is clearly a special running back. And, this past season, the surrounding cast was much better too. But we saw what we occasionally saw in New York. The issue in New York is not always healthy, bad supporting cast. Totally healthy, good supporting cast. One of the great seasons we've seen from a running back in years. But Barkley, to me, gets topped by, I think, right now, not the most impactful, maybe the second most impactful, if Jaden's the most impactful, Jalen Carter. Entering his 3rd season this year, he has already become, in his first 2 seasons, completely unblockable, demanding on almost every snap, whether it happens or not, the consideration of a double team. 5 forced fumbles in his 2 seasons, most in the league by any defensive tackle. I think Jalen Carter has a chance to be one of the great players in the history of the game at that position, but we just saw maybe the best player, certainly top 3 in NFL history at that position, and that's Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald and Jalen Carter are different, though. Jalen Carter is a mountain of a man who is also supremely gifted and athletic. Donald was smaller and slight, 6'1", 280, 285. Carter, 6'3", 6'4", 325. Both massive disrupting forces up front. We saw it, obviously, in the Super Bowl. The sky is the limit for Jalen Carter. He's got a chance to be one of the best to ever do it. And remember, this was a controversial pick because of what had happened at Georgia after that national championship. The car wreck, the passing of somebody in a car wreck, Jalen Carter being, a witness to it, but not necessarily reporting it quickly enough. That's my top 5. Jalen Carter 1, Saquon Barkley 2, Jaden Daniels 3, Malik Neighbors 4, Dexter Lawrence 5. I left out CeeDee Lamb. I left out Lane Johnson. I left out A.J. Brown. I left out Hurts. Parsons isn't in it. Parsons, I think when we did this, I think Denton and I did this a year ago, maybe longer than that, year and 2 months ago. I think I had Parsons number 1 in the division. That's my top 5. Max, what's yours?
So you mentioned, I mean, Jalen Carter is going to be and is already a monster. Didn't make my list. I was kind of shocked that that CD got left off. So 5-1, my number 5, Malik Neighbors, for all the things you said. I mean, he's going to be going forward one of the most dominant receivers in the NFC East, and if not the league as a whole. Like he could have beat us single-handedly last year if he had made one catch on the sideline. That game ends a lot differently.
Yeah.
So Malik, incredible. Number 4, CeeDee Lamb, just tall, can go up and get it. I mean, he's going to stretch the field. I mean, I think he's going to be an incredible. I mean, Pickens is going to be an incredible addition to that receiving core. So it's going to force, they can't just lock him, or I mean, CD up by himself. They're going to have to spread it around. I think he gets a lot more this year. Dex Lawrence is my 3. I mean, he's just, every time he puts his hand in the dirt, there's a chance he makes to the quarterback and just, screws up the entire game. Number 2, Jaden Daniels. Number 1, Saquon Barkley. That's where I have my top 5 in the NFC East. Saquon coming off of, I believe he was named number 1 in the NFL Top 100 this year.
Oh, was he?
Yes.
Oh,
I believe Lamar was 2.
That.
I believe Lamar was number 2.
I don't care. It's not going to change my ranking.
Of course.
But I'm surprised that it was him and not a quarterback, whether it was Allen Jackson or Mahomes.
Yeah, Lamar being 2 was a little bit of a oh, wow, okay. But I mean, we're respecting the running back position again, so we've come full circle.
Interesting. You having Lawrence at 3 and not having Carter. Look, Dexter Lawrence is a more accomplished player at this point. There's no doubt, and he's still only 27.
Yeah,
I think Jalen Carter is just has a much bigger.
Oh, I see it.
I think he is going to be, when all is said and done, potentially one of the best to ever do it. Dexter Lawrence is certainly going to be thought of as a great player. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, there are a lot of choices here. For the best player in the NFC East. A top 5 ranking. I mean, Lane Johnson. Some would say he is the best tackle and hence a top 5 player in the division. Jordan Mailata, you might say the same thing about. Frankie Louvu could be in this conversation a year from now. He could be. We'll see. He's certainly in a top 10 in the division, would get serious consideration right now. I think the biggest, you left him out too. A.J. Brown.
Thought about it.
We both left off. For me, I just think Neighbors is going to be the best. Agreed. I think he's going to end up being in a Chase Jefferson class.
Yeah.
All right, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. I want who you think the best player in the NFC East is, and then you can tell me where you ended up having Jaden Daniels on that list. Max had him at 2. I had him at 3. We'll take your calls on that next. Dan Quinn at 11 a.m. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
All right, here is what's happening. It is Tuesday, September 2nd. We are coming off a packed Labor Day weekend filled with college football, including the game last night. Bill Belichick's college debut did not go the way that he and Jordan Hudson hoped, or any UNC fan for that matter. They fall 48-14 to TCU. Maryland football, they have a quarterback now. A bit of a slow start for true freshman Malik Washington, but really found his groove in the second quarter with all 3 touchdown passes coming before halftime. Such a great day that he didn't even have to see the field in the fourth quarter. Maryland wins 39-7. The Mystics, they fall to the Sparks over the weekend. The rookies continue to shine. Kiki Ariafin notched her 15th double-double on the year. The Nats, they beat the Marlins by a score of 2-0. They will re-rack versus the Marlins tonight at 6:45 on the Fan. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:15. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1, and you can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us, and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
So 301-230-0980. Our phone lines are open for who's the best player in the NFC East. You can also give us where you would have Jaden Daniels on the list of the best players in the division. My list starts with at number 5, Dexter Lawrence. That's who I think the 5th best player in the division is, followed by Malik Neighbors at 4, Jaden at 3, Saquon Barkley at 2, and then I've got Jalen Carter as the best player in the NFC East. Who is the best player in the NFC East? Max has Neighbors at 5, CeeDee Lamb at 4, Dexter Lawrence at 3, Jaden Daniels at 2, and Saquon Barkley at number 1 overall. Phone lines are open 301-230-0980. By the way, let me just mention that the NFL Top 100 list is done. And Washington ended up with the most players they have ever ended up with on this list. They ended up with 5 players on the list. That was tied for the 4th most in the NFL. The team with the most players in the NFL Top 100 list, and that Top 100 list, remember, is the list NFL.com does, the NFL Network does, where the players vote on the top 100 players. Philly had 9, Detroit had 7, Houston had 6 without Tunsil. Tunsil made the list for Washington. And then 5 teams came in with 5 players: Green Bay, Kansas City, San Francisco, Tampa Bay, and Washington. So Washington with the 4th most, tied for the 4th most players on the top 100 list. You know, that's a conversation we've had in years past about how many A players does Washington actually have on its roster. Well, on that top 100 list, Washington had 5, what you would call, if they're top 100 in the league, you know, A players. You know, the A players being for them Laramie Tunsil, Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, Terry McLaurin, and Jaden Daniels. Jaden came in at number 21 on the list. The Eagles had 9 players. You want to talk about a roster that the league's players think is completely packed with A-level players. Their players included Jordan Mailata, Cooper DeJean, rookie last year, Quinyon Mitchell, rookie last year. Mitchell was a top 50 player, came in at 49. Jalen Carter, A.J. Brown, Zach Bond. I thought he was a top 100 player. He could have been considered for top 5 on the NFC East list. We didn't, mention him at all. And I should have, because he had an unbelievable season last year. And Vic Fangio saying, yeah, no, we see you as a middle linebacker. And he was right. They also had Lane Johnson, Jalen Hurts, and Saquon Barkley on the list. Saquon Barkley coming in at number 10 overall. All right. 301-230-0980. We've got a line open if you want to jump on. Who's the best player in the NFC East? I say it's Jalen Carter. Denton says it's Saquon Barkley. Chris in Delaware, what do you say? Chris, you there?
I'm here.
All right, go ahead. You're on.
All right. This is a wild take by you. I agree with 99.9% of most of your takes. I guess I'm a little bit of a homer in that regard, but I don't know how you have Carter and Saquon Barkley ahead of Jaden Daniels. Neither one of them, first off, Daniels is the most important position, right, at quarterback versus
and I made the distinction of impactful versus just best pound for pound player.
Okay, well, I mean, Carter has some more pounds on him, right? But I mean, like Jaden Daniels is it.
Literally.
In terms of what he can do, running, throwing, decision making. I realize the D tackle's not picking up the ball like that. They're not throwing the ball, but Daniels scares as many defensive coordinators as Carter scares as many offensive coordinators. And frankly, you can potentially double team and chip that guy and at least get him out of the game for like a third of it, right? So he's not as impactful. But you can't do that with Daniels unless he's, on the sideline. I guess your best defense is offense against him. But yeah, I just think it's one, and then it's basically everyone else kind of not close. Not to say those guys aren't great players, but Daniels is the best in the East. At least, just given the small sample size, I get it, but he is, and he has to be.
Yeah, Chris, I'm not going to argue with you on the most impactful player. And maybe, that should have been the way we did it. But I'm talking about you just look at this player and not know what the results are. You just watch him. You watch how he's game planned for. You watch the impact he has on other players. I mean, he wrecked some of the playoff games. He was a dominant player in the Super Bowl without registering a sack in the Super Bowl. He was unbelievable in that playoff game against, I think it was the Packers or the Rams, just taking the game over at times. I think that, look, you're not wrong. You're not wrong on impact because Jaden Daniels right now puts probably more fear into defensive coordinators' hearts and minds than 99.9% of the players. I mean, we're talking about, the quarterback position. So it's Allen, it's Jackson, it's Mahomes, it's Burrow, it's Jaden, no doubt. And, Barkley would probably have the same thing, Tyreek Hill a few years ago, Chase, Jefferson. So it's hard to think of it that way with, a guy that is an interior defensive tackle, but I think he's the best football player overall. But thanks for the call. I do appreciate that. I was looking at something too on that top 100 list. There definitely were some surprises, I thought. Number one, I don't think Saquon Barkley's the best player in the NFL. I think that the even not even talking about impact, and that's why like Myles Garrett was like 2 or 3 last year. He was 8 this year. Pat Surtain is in the top 10. TJ Watt was 11, I think, on this list. I like some of those guys I actually consider to be, in that Saquon Barkley class, if we're not talking about quarterbacks. But quarterbacks, I mean, Jackson, Allen, Mahomes, right there. Jaden, right there. Where was Jalen Carter on the list of best football players in the league? Jalen Carter was, 43. Not ranked last year, 43 this year. I think on that ESPN top 100 list, he came in much higher. Jason in Laurel, who's the best player in the NFC East?
What do you got, Jason?
What do you got, Jason?
Hey, Kevin. I love you. Love your show. Just telling you, your guy on the call, and he's awesome. But the first caller, I got to say, I got to kind of agree with him. I think this take from you is a little out there, and not because these aren't all impactful players, but for me, what resonates with this argument is if you remove Jaden Daniels from this team last year, this team that the year before was like, 4-13 or whatever?
Yeah.
What is our record? We're not in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, it's
we're
6-11.
We're not doing anything.
6-11.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. And you can say if you remove Jalen Carter,
they're still pretty good.
They're still a good team. But again, impact isn't I acknowledge that in terms of the most impactful, Jaden's probably one. I was just looking for best pound for pound football player in this moment.
Yeah,
and maybe I should have done it the other way.
In our conference, and the only guy that I would put above him in that conversation is maybe Mahomes. But again, for me, and I thought last year was the Lamar and Allen. Yeah, I know. But I thought last year with the Lamar and Josh Allen MVP thing, how I resonated in my mind is, look, just flip them teams. If you put Josh Allen in Baltimore, they still have a great season. I don't know that Lamar would have done it at Buffalo with what Allen did.
I get what you're saying. I mean, we're talking about division players right now, but I get what you're saying. Look, you're not wrong, nor was our last caller. the impact that Jaden had on our football team was the most significant in the division, I think even more so than Saquon Barkley, because the Eagles still would have been a good team, maybe not a Super Bowl team. Washington would have been 6-11 without Jaden, 7-10 best case without Jaden last year. I was just saying, who are the best all-around football players? The best football players. Just like when you do, a boxing pound for pound, best fighter, regardless of weight class. That's kind of the way I was viewing the exercise. But I think there was a disconnect, and I probably should have done it in terms of most impactful. And by the way, if I did it as most impactful, Jaden would have been 1. Barkley would have been 2.
Hey, Karen, can I just leave you with something real quick, super fast? First of all, I always will give you the flowers for Jane Daniels because I didn't even know who he was until I listened to your show. But watched a lot of college football over the weekend. Number 8 or number 5 for South Carolina, the huge wide receiver. I love that guy. You got to watch this guy if you haven't seen him.
Yeah.
And he's local. He's from D.C.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason. Let's get to Jody. Jody, who's the best player in the NFC East?
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Jody.
They're great players.
We got some issues with the phones, Max. I can't hear you. I got you now, Jody. Go ahead.
Hey, I said, I think it's Jaden. I said, those players you named on the Eagles are great players. And I personally, that you named on the Eagles are great players. I even think Jalen Hurts should get more credit than what he does over some of the AFC quarterbacks. But it's not Jaden. Jaden took a mediocre team to the NFC Championship game.
Bad team.
And Jaden, I'm sorry. Yeah, you can even say a bad team to the NFC Championship game. And they done it because of him. He's the one took them. No doubt about it. Jalen Hurts couldn't done that. And again, I think you could put – if somebody tells me Jalen Hurts is better than Lamar or Josh Allen, I can't argue with him. He's got the hardware. He's been to 2 Super Bowls.
I'd argue with him. I'd take Josh Allen over Jalen Hurts, and I like Jalen Hurts.
But I could see their point, is my point. But Jaden Daniels, if you put him on that Eagles team, I think they could have won the Super Bowl with him. But maybe
me
even
too.
Better.
Well, they did win the Super Bowl, but I agree with you. They would have. I don't know if they could win it in more resounding fashion, but it was it was 40-6 or whatever it was at one point in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. Thanks, Jody. Appreciate the call. By the way, on that top 100 list that ESPN put out last week, Jaden was 24. Jalen Carter was actually 18. And the quote in here was from Vic Fangio. The good news about Jalen is twofold. 1, he played very well for us last year, but 2, he can still improve a lot. That is scary. All right. Dan Quinn, you'll hear my conversation from late last week with the head coach of the Washington Commanders right after this on the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980, the team980.com. Don't forget, you can watch us on the Team 980's YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and the like button when you get there. Dan Quinn coming up in a moment. This segment of the show is brought to you by Staples. Your local Staples has hot deals and super low prices throughout the store on everything for your business. And right now at Staples, save up to $125 off your print order. Exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/print for details. Ends 9/13. Save even more at Staples. All right, so I had a chance late last week to have Dan Quinn on my podcast. I wanted to play it back for you guys today. This is how it started. All right, it's my pleasure to welcome back to the show Washington's head coach, Dan Quinn. Coach, thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. By the way, full disclosure, we are recording this pretty early. It is 5:30 in the morning. That's early for a lot of you out there, but I would guess that this is not very early for you, right?
Well, Kevin, it's good to be on with you, man. Welcome to the life of a coach. So glad to be on with you and talk some Commanders football and getting ready, man.
You just said welcome to the life of a coach. You know, I think I may have mentioned this to you last year, or you mentioned it when I asked you about it. You've lived in like a dozen or so places over 30 years, right?
Correct.
Is there a moment, or has there ever been a moment that you just weren't sure about the lifestyle?
Oh, man, no. Honestly, I don't think I've ever really been asked that. But it is. It's way more than a job. So I would say it's definitely a lifestyle. And sometimes I think in lots of professions, takes what it takes. And so some of the early hours are really good that you get some time before the players are there, because they get there early and they stay late. But during that time, we're doing the teaching and the interacting. So the times before they get there and the times after they leave is our best prep time for them.
All right, let's talk some football. When you get asked by someone who's close to you in your life, so Dan, what's the team look like this year? What's your answer?
I would say this is a really tough and competitive crew. And I thought that going into camp, and then now as the roster trims down, there were some real position battles, Kev, that we thought would be that way. There's some positions that were deep. And so to see the offensive lines, the defensive lines, all the padded work that we needed to get our line of scrimmages right, we thought that would be an important part of our camp this year, and it certainly was.
Was there a player that surprised you, during camp in a positive way, meaning you didn't know what to expect or you didn't have the highest of expectations, but he really blew you and the other coaches away?
Well, the first part I would say is it's not with expectations or that, but getting to see the new players. So you're on, for instance, like on offense, you're getting to see Tunsil, you're getting to see Connerly, you're getting to see, Debo, you're getting to see guys who, your first look at them, first on practice, how they're interacting. That's J.K. Kinlaw and Wise and Trey Amos. So those would have been ones that, I see that happening. There's a whole nother subset, I would say, Kev, of guys who are like making the leap. And I would say Quan Martin is one for me that I have already had high expectations for him. But then to see the type of camp that he had, the work that he's put in, I feel like he's one player that I think is really about to go big.
I think I asked you this one of the times I had you on last year. How much do you really know about your team before the real games begin? We all as NFL fans know the league changes so much year to year. Hell, it's really a week-to-week league in so many ways. How much can you really know about your team until the real games begin?
Well, you definitely have to go, through, some weeks. You want to make sure identity, that part is right, Kev. Like, we want to make sure, like, with you and all of our friends and fans that watch us play, like, man, these guys absolutely bring it, how hard they play. And so you have to go show that. You've got to go demonstrate that. I've seen the way they practice, but it does take, a few weeks for that identity to, come into shape and to show it. It's not something that you could just say, man, you gotta see it, you gotta demonstrate it, and so that does take place through the first, quarter of the season or so. But they've got to put the work in to put themselves in a space to do that. But that would be one thing. The team's identity, man, you've got to have that every single time you go. This is how we get down, and if you can demonstrate that over and over again, then I think you got a real shot to play well.
Yeah, that's something that you've talked about since the moment you got hired. The other thing you talked about actually before last season was, we don't use the word rebuild. We use the word recalibrate. Be honest, did you have any clue this time last year that recalibration meant 12 wins, 2 road playoff wins, and 60 minutes from the Super Bowl?
No, I wasn't probably allowing myself to go that far out. I was just trying to throw, an identity to make sure that part would be right. But I think that does go back to that, Kev. Like, we don't place one opponent above another, man. Like, we want to make sure, like, every time we go, they get it all. And that's kind of the byproduct of doing it that way. So, no, at that time, that recalibration wasn't there. I knew that we had competitive guys. I knew our team had connected, but it probably didn't become the team we were going to be. May have come after we lost 3 in a row, which in the NFL, man, that is hard. And so we became tougher, a little more resilient. On the other side of that, I wish we didn't have to go through that. But as a team, sometimes you do have to go through the tougher moments to really test yourself, see what your resolve is all about. And when you come out the other side of it, there is a toughness and a hardness that you can appreciate. And those are things that matter, because you find out when it gets real hot, who's down for it.
Looking back, and we've looked back a lot on last season because, easily it was the most exciting season we've had around here in 3+ decades. That 3-game losing skid, which started with that Pittsburgh loss at home that was, about a half inch away from a first down and nearly field goal range at the end.
Yeah.
And then, 4 nights later in Philadelphia, quick turnaround. And then, the incredible throw to Terry against the Cowboys, but the missed extra point. How much of that stretch was about Jaden's health?
Once he gets where got back into his flow and into his rhythm, that was good. But you're right. That's kind of the life in the NFL, where Pittsburgh game could have gone the other way. The Dallas game could have gone the other way, but it didn't. And I wish, like I said, we didn't have to go through those, but we did. But, as far as like his health, like he was ready to go and ready to go battle for it. So it was just us not nailing some opportunities. Like, for instance, you're talking about the extra point or not executing like we need to at the end. And we're going to work really hard to make sure those moments, man, we're all about that.
He said earlier this summer, or not that long ago, he was part of an event, I think, with Saquon Barkley and maybe Jamar Chase, I think. He said that his rib was broken in that Carolina game. Was he playing with broken ribs?
He did have a rib injury, yes.
Is that all I'm going to get out of you about that? Because
I think that's all you're going to get today, Kev. Yeah, but I think what it speaks to is, like, whatever the injury, like, this is a tough competitor, man, and that's like things that you don't know during scouting and during the process. All of a sudden you say, man, like, this guy's really going to put in whatever it takes to go play. And it's one of the many things that he and his teammates and myself, why we respect him so much. He's tough, but it's all the unseen work that he puts in to get ready, to go play. We talked about Cliff, arriving early. Jaden's not far behind in terms of the time he gets here to really nail it for him and for his teammates.
I was going through the list of the quarterbacks that I think you have been with on teams that you've been a coach. And the list is actually really impressive. I mean, it's Matt Ryan, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Jeff Garcia, I think, when you were in San Francisco. Brett Favre, I think you were with the Jets when Favre was there for that 1 year. Am I right about that?
That is correct. You're correct.
Matt Hasselbeck. I mean, that's a decent list. I might be missing one or two. How does was that the list?
That's excellent. Yes.
How does Jaden's potential, his upside compare to some of those guys?
What I've learned, man, like, I don't compare Jaden to anybody. And here's why. Like, he just constantly is pushing it to go to the next space. But what I can tell you is that, man, does he put the work in to put himself in a spot to play really well. And he's so unique in what he does. He can use his legs. He can get outside the pocket. So he plays in a different style, but he's still effective. He's keep growing, and you'll see an improved version of Jaden in 2025. So this is not a player that sat back, and said, okay, I did well. It was just the opposite of him going for it again. His accuracy in training camp has been so on point. His footwork that he wanted to improve upon. So, yeah, that's a good thing. This guy, his ceiling, and he's still going for it. And I'm pretty pumped to see where it takes us.
You just mentioned, footwork. What did he specifically need to improve on heading into this offseason? And it sounds like you feel like he has.
It has. There were specific throws where, for instance, like a deep throw to the left of not overstriding. So it may seem small to us or to a listener, but those are the kind of details. If you're really wanting to, find the edges, like, he's going to find them. And so that's an example of what he was going through and how to do it. It wasn't a motion shift. So often, with quarterbacks, all the power and the strength is, coming from their legs. And so to have that part right was a big deal that he wanted to work on hard, and he definitely has. So I really respect that about him. Like, he is a guy, like I said, man, that is just always ready to put it in to improve. And when you're already a good player, sometimes that's hard to make it to the next ceiling when there's this big gap, like we're talking about maybe some of the guys going from year one to year two, where these big leaps and bounds normally take. When you're already hitting at a high level, you have to be really detailed about the things you need to do to take it to the next one. And he's willing to do that.
I was thinking about something, especially since you are a defensive coach. There's this thing where people say, well, an off season of preparing for Jaden, defensive coordinators, have had a whole off season to figure out how to defend this guy. Is that a real thing, off seasons, to come up with ways to stop a talent like Jaden Daniels?
I think it's hard because we also added other weapons around him too. So there's things that we have done in 2024. Now we've added some things, some ways we want to play, some different concepts. So I get the narrative, but it's much easier said than done to say, okay, in this game against this coverage, it might have not gone so well. Well, do you even play that coverage? And so those are the things, that you better, look long and hard about how you want to go and what you want to do to play, because he also put in the work. So it's a narrative. I don't know if it's as popular or as prevalent as some people think it is. So that's how I think of that.
Interesting. Did you go through the exercise for the benefit of Cliff and the offensive coaches of saying, this is what I would do to adjust to him? Or did you basically just give me the answer that it's really difficult and it's not necessarily, the inside narrative?
We definitely did for the entire offense, to say more specific than more broad than just Jaden on the first part, to say kind of like an audit that you would do to say what went really good, what needs to change, what do we want to adjust, kind of what we need to take out that we were practicing but wasn't as effective. So you do that part first to say, let's make sure these things that we're doing are really highlighted. And then, yes, as a coach that can look at it from a different lens, it may not be coverage related. It may be, a certain pressure, a certain look that you want to find to say, is this something that you would try against him? And so that's really, through the spring, you want to sprinkle in some of those to say, this is what I think people may try to do, and then approach it that way.
Do you agree with the following statement that the defense has to be better or it will be really hard to duplicate what you did last year?
Agreed. I think anytime you want to go compete for a championship, all three phases, man, you've got to be on it. I love the way last year we covered kicks. I love the way that, in the passing game, Joe and the guys had, real resolve in how it was done. But there are definitely areas that you're going to see improvement from the defense. And that's a really important part of it. So just like a turnover margin is to winning, that's the offense taking care of the ball, and it's also the defense creating takeaways. So those are just a few of the things for us to play our best. We'll need to be our entire team hitting the mark.
So it sounds like you've got confidence that the defense will be improved in 2025.
I do. But like most of you, man, you've got to go show it and demonstrate it. Tackling, creating takeaways, creating a havoc up front. Those are the ways to play, good defense, Kev. As in this game where people are trying to create space, you better be a good tackling team because that'll eliminate a lot of the big plays, and the second piece is, man, we've got to do a better job of creating takeaways, forcing fumbles that get recovered, the interceptions. If we do that part right, we'll definitely improve defensively.
All right, two more, and I appreciate the time. You usually don't hear coaches talk about chasing down one team, but I'm curious as to how much of the offseason plan inside the building was about closing the gap on one team, that one team being the Eagles.
Yeah, they had a fantastic team and a fantastic year. And so during the regular season, we split the games with them. In the postseason, they absolutely got the best of us. Kind of referring to what I was saying earlier about the margins of winning. For them to get takeaways and for us to not to get any, that was the deciding factor, in the game.
Yep.
Where we didn't give ourselves our best shot. But at the end of it, and like you also give credit to them, we don't spend our time, looking at too many of the other opponents, but we do look at ourselves really, really closely. What do we need to do? Where do we need to get better? And if we can dig in on those first, that's a big deal. But you start by looking defensively, explosive plays, who attacked you, how did it happen? And the same thing offensively, what were the most effective things? How do we feature the players in those roles? Because, Kev, honestly, it's trying to put the players in the right spot. It's not just the playbook. It's the playbook and then featuring the players in their correct roles.
Yeah, I've heard you emphasize that a lot since the day you arrived, that it's, not just the player, the athlete, the competitor, but it's, incumbent upon the coaches to put those players in the right spots. So I'll finish up with this. The expectations heading into this season, Dan, are by far the highest they have been in at least 25 years. 2000 was a year in which they were coming off a division title, a playoff win. It was that first, Dan Snyder off-season fantasy football frenzy of signing Deion Sanders and Bruce Smith and Jeff George and Mark Carrier, and the expectations were super high, but they have not been anywhere near that. In fact, the opposite of that for the last quarter century until this upcoming season. The expectations are through the roof. The anticipation for this season is super high. Do you feel that? And is there any extra?
That's awesome.
Do you feel it? And is there any, added pressure because of it?
I feel like, man, the intensity and the excitement for it, of course. And, I would absolutely not want it any other way. This is why we do it, to go battle and compete for it. But we really do a good job, Kevin, of staying grounded, of staying present. We just don't look too far down the line. We don't see that being an advantage for us. I would hope that when we talk, you and I, in a few months, teams then can really kick the hell out of the team, that's here today. So that's what I look for to see how good we can get.
Thanks for doing this, Dan. Really appreciate it. Best of luck this year.
Yeah, you got it, man. And good to be on with you and talk some ball. And look forward to our next one, man.
Dan Quinn, everybody, joined me late last week. Appreciate that. Off of that, this is the most excited you've been about a season since, and fill in the blank. Since which season? Since when? I think there's a lot of different answers to this. This is the most expectations. The most excited you've been about a season since. I think some of you will say 2012, maybe 2013. Maybe the first one without Snyder, 2023. Maybe we've got to go back, or 2024. The first was 2023, the first one without Snyder. Maybe you go back to Gibbs, 2004, maybe 2000, which was a lot of excitement in the off season. This is the most excited for a season you've been since. And tell me since when. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Want to tell you about Window Nation and what they're offering right now. It is the best time of the year to buy new windows. Whether you have old drafty windows or cheap builder grade ones, September's the perfect month to protect your home from cooler weather. And right now, Window Nation is offering their most popular offer. Buy 2 replacement windows, get 2 for free. Plus, you don't have to pay anything for 2 years. No down payment, no monthly payments, and no interest. You heard that right. Window Nation is giving you the option to pay nothing until the year 2027. Did I mention their installation crews? They can replace a house full of windows in a day or less. With Window Nation, you get top quality windows from a trusted company, all at a reasonable price, because they know replacing windows is an investment and they want to make it affordable for you. Don't miss Window Nation's most popular offer right now. Buy 2, get 2 free, and pay nothing for 2 years. This sale won't last forever. Call them now at 866-90Nation or visit windownation.com to get your free in-home estimate. From Scott in Chevy Chase. Scott writes, Kevin, it's the most excited I've been since Coach Joe came back in 2004. And thanks to the open to the show, I had to take the day off from work. Your Tuesday after Labor Day show beginning is my favorite show every year. Thank you, Scott, for that. Yeah, I get fired up too. It's like we can really start focusing on the season, focusing on the big picture of the season. We'll have lots of picks coming up this week, previewing the division. We talked about it a little bit last hour. I love this week. I do. And hope springs eternal, for pretty much 25 to 27 NFL teams every year. We were in that boat, despite knowing deep down that as long as Dan owned the team, we weren't going to have a legitimate shot to do anything great. I think most years it was like, you know what? We're 0-0, and it's the NFL. Anything can happen. And I think going into each NFL season, 25 teams can comfortably say, you know what? This could be our year if things break right. I was on a show last week and somebody said, give me the one or two teams that have no prayer this year. And I thought about it and I said, I guess the Jets and the Browns maybe have no prayer. It's Indy maybe. It's hard to come up with a list of teams that have the Saints. It's hard every year. The NFL gives you that opportunity to retool, to recalibrate, and go have yourself, as my good friend Steve Zabin would say, a season. All right, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. This is the most excited for a season you've been since, and give me the last time you were this fired up for a season. Look, for certain people out there, maybe people like Max, this is it. There's nothing to compare it to. I would say for me, I was very fired up for the Joe Gibbs return in 2004. But I was also very excited for the 2016 season after Kirk went out and helped lead the team to a division title in 2015. And I was pretty fired up for 2012 and 2013 as well. I thought there was a chance. Hell, I thought 2017 there was a chance they could be decent because they had improved a little bit on defense. But I would say for me, this is the most excited. This isn't, look, the highest expectations for a season since 2000. The most excited I've been for a season since 2004, the Gibbs return. That was a special moment, the rehiring of Joe Gibbs, the buildup, the return of all of his coaches, Buggs and company, the acquisition of Mark Brunell, the idea that Washington football, Redskins football was going to be back. And you know what? It was clearly the best 4-year stretch of football during the Snyder regime. 2 playoff seasons in 4 years. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. This is the most excited for a season you've been since. Max, do you even have in your lifetime a season to compare it to?
I mean, 2013 is the closest comparison I'm going to get to it, because that was like the prime of my football love and watching, and it really made me just kind of fall in love with the sport. But yeah, this is the most anticipated season since then, and I don't really know how I feel yet. I try and reel in the Ashburn syndrome. I try and but I at the same time am trying to stay positive. But it's hard after 25 years of being downtrodden. So it takes some getting used to. But 2013 is the most excited I've been for this team since then.
Yeah, I mean, the 2013 season had the all-in for week 1 off season.
Yeah.
And by the time we got to that opener, there were, for a lot of us, sort of with, I guess, closer proximity to what was happening out there, we were starting to hear some of the stories about, what a nightmare he had turned into and how off-putting he was to many in the organization. But, you know, most players and certainly most fans thought, yeah, but did you see him last year? This dude was magic in 2012, had the best, up until that point, the best rookie season of any quarterback in NFL history, 20-5. I mean, the way he took the league by storm. And we also had the injury that he was coming off of, which was a very serious injury. I was very pumped up to see his debut in 2012. Definitely. All right, 301-230-0980. We've got a line open if you want to weigh in. This is the most excited you've been for a Washington season since. Let's start with Chris in Bowie. Chris, go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, Sheehan? Good morning.
Hey, Chris.
So, really quickly, I'm born in 96. I just turned 29 this year, so I cannot count year 2000. I'm just a child.
Yeah.
Like Max said, it's really a double answer, because 2012 could count because we just saw the Heisman winner and we drafted him. So we assumed he would be what he was. 2013 is more of a better answer because we were able to finally witness him in a rookie season in the NFL.
Yeah, know what his potential was. Yes.
Right. And then what you just said before you let me on was the other thing was Gibbs. I was still a kid, but I understood what Gibbs was and the 3 Super Bowls because my parents who made me a fan. And so when he came back, it was like, oh, wait a minute. This might be a great thing that I get to see like my father and my mother saw. And then 2016 with Kirk, I mean, where team wasn't there, but it was still like, wait a minute, this isn't, you know, a 7-9 season we think we're getting ready to walk into, or a 6-10 season we're getting ready to walk into. But I think the answer is to 2013. Let's see if RG3 can make this happen again. How folks feel about JD5.
Again, I get the 2013 as an answer, is that, you know, most excited for a season since then. I think for me, we had started in, you know, media, we had started to hear some of what was going on out there, and the issue that Mike and Kyle and others were having. You know, it wasn't so much the locker room, but there was a lot of eye rolling during that off season. Like, this dude's hashtagging everything. He's, you know, producing a documentary all in for week 1. And a lot of people in that building didn't think he should play in week 1. And in fact, if Kirk Cousins doesn't,
that as well.
I'm sorry.
Was McVay an assistant back then?
Sean was on that staff. Yeah. But if Kirk Cousins didn't roll an ankle in preseason, I think that Mike was going to start Kirk against the Eagles on Monday Night Football. Remember, that was Chip Kelly's debut.
I remember that for sure.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Because, you know, the other thing, too, and we didn't know this at the time, and remember, those first several weeks were like, what happened to the offense? You know, they changed the offense because he demanded that they change the offense. Now, they could say, hey, we're doing this to protect him because he's not completely healthy, or we want to make sure he doesn't get hurt. But he just wasn't the same player if he wasn't running. And it was the game against hold on, I'm looking through that 2013 season. I want to say it was the game against the Bears. There was a game that he went, apparently, you know, according to people, and he just said, all right, put read option style football back in there. I'm ready to start running again. And they scored 40-something, and he had like 100 yards rushing, and they won the game. And it was like, all right, now we got, you know, Bob back to where he was. All right, thanks. Yeah, appreciate it, Chris. Let's go to Rylan. Rylan, this is the most excited for a season since when?
Morning, Kev. Well, since I think I came down to the States as a freshman, I don't know. I think 2012, 2013 was about as good as it got for me, and then I didn't know any better, right? So now we got legit expectations, legit national excitement, legit ownership, legit head coach, legit quarterback, and a barn being built on RFK. What else can we ask for, Kev? So we'll get ourselves a Lombardi and have a season, eh?
Let's go have ourselves a season. By the way, I'm looking back at that 2013 season. It was the week before that he started to run again. 9 carries, 77 yards against the Cowboys in a loss. But that Chicago game that I pointed out, 11 rushes, 84 yards. He threw for 298, and they won the game 45-41. And that was the, you know, I think maybe it was the week before. I remember back then hearing he went, to Mike and Kyle and said, all right, you can put some of those plays from last year back into the offense. And I guess Dan was okay with it. What a complete and utter S show it was. Let's go to Kevin in Arlington. Kevin, this is the most excited for a season you've been since.
Kev, I'm going to go way back, and this isn't revisionist. It was the most excited I have been since August of 91. And here's why. If you'll recall, we had a massive road win in Philly the postseason before.
Yeah.
Once again, our season ended to the at that time defending Super Bowl champion 49ers at a Candlestick. But we made a lot of player additions that offseason. I mean, guys that stepped up like Eric Williams and Jumpy Gathers and rookie Bobby Wilson and Jason Buck. And we've got all these, Tim Johnson. We had all these defensive linemen we brought in. We had Danny Copeland and Brad Edwards. We just did a lot of things. And we got Matt Millen. And Matt Millen, kind of like Von Miller this summer, he was at that stage of his career picking the team as a free agent he thought had a shot to go the distance. And then to top it all off, and it's just a fact, Montana got hurt in the NFC title game against the Giants. He hurt his elbow. He was banged up all that summer. He ended up missing the whole 91 season. And I just felt like, the waters are parting here. We've got a shot. We're not going to have to go through Montana. So I really loved what Casserly and Gibbs did that spring and summer to improve the team. And the rest is history. I'll take it to the grave. That's the greatest Redskin team I've ever seen.
That's interesting. I certainly recall being fired up for the season. The additions they made on defense in particular. They also added Riggs, right? And was that the year they added Riggs, or was it the year before?
Yeah, there were several new players. I mean, Ricky Irvins was a rookie. I mean, there were
Irvins was a rookie.
That were a big part of that run.
But they were not the favorite, going into that season. I remember famously Playboy magazine picked Washington to win the Super Bowl, and Steve Buckhantz made the mistake of mentioning that to Gibbs. But I knew they were going to be good. I had no idea they were going to be that good. Because remember, too, Kev, Rippon was still a bit of...
I knew they were going to be that good. I'm just saying I knew that they were much improved, and they were a force at the end of the prior season with going on that win streak.
Yeah.
And then you remember,
but it was Rippon's picks in the playoff game at Candlestick, and he threw a lot of picks. Remember back then,
well,
and
he did.
He was still a bit of we knew he could play, but in terms of the season he had, no one saw that coming.
Oh no, I didn't see him.
Yeah,
right. I did not see him having that season at all.
Yeah.
Okay, all I'm saying though is we were much improved.
Yep. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. 301-230-0980. This is the most excited you've been for a Washington season since fill in the blank. Bobby in North Carolina, go ahead. Bobby, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. You got me, Kev?
Start over again, Bob. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Gibbs 2.004, man. Because we lived it back in the 80s and the early 90s. His first tenure. But, Kevin, I hadn't been this excited about everything since Gibbs 1.0, that 10 or 12-year stretch that we had, and we were very good. I mean, all signs are pointing up for the entire organization. We found our quarterback, and we've got good coaching. We got good ownership. So that's what I'm most excited, because what we have now is sustainable for years and years, to go back on one of those runs like we were used to back in the early 80s and early 90s. And a lot of your probably listeners never experienced that. We did. We're at that age. And you remember, every year we were the team. I mean, we had a chance every year, and that's what we're getting back to now, Kevin. But I'm excited about this year. If we can stay healthy, I think we can make another deep run for sure this year, brother.
The 2004 season started, of course, with Clinton Portis ripping off, a 60-yard plus touchdown run. And it was like
Kevin,
right in that. Yeah, I was there too. And it was like right in that moment, it's like, we're back. We are back.
Here we go. Yeah.
But we weren't. It took some grinding that season, but the following season, we're coming up, by the way, on the 20-year anniversary of the Monday Night Miracle game. You know, I'm going to get Santana on in advance of that. Thanks, Bobby. Appreciate it. If you're on hold, stay there. Stan, Ross, DC, anybody else on hold, we've got a line open if you want to weigh in. This is the most excited you've been about a Washington season since 301-230-0980. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. We're free and live on the Odyssey app. And don't forget, you can watch us on our Team 980 YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and hit the like button when you get there.
All right, here's what's happening on this September 2nd, Tuesday. It was a packed Labor Day weekend. The Commanders, they are hosting wide receiver Kendrick Bourne on a free agent visit. They are the second team he has visited in as many days after a visit to San Francisco yesterday. Hopefully we'll find out his decision either today or tomorrow. Bill Belichick's college debut last night did not go the way that he and Jordan or any UNC fan hoped for that matter. They fall 48-14 to TCU. Maryland football has a quarterback. Bit of a slow start for true freshman Malik Washington, but really found his groove in the second quarter with all three touchdown passes coming in before halftime. Such a great day that he didn't even have to see the field in the fourth quarter. Maryland wins 39-7. The Mystics, they fall to the LA Sparks 81-78 over the weekend. The rookies continue to shine as Kiki Uriafin notched her 15th double-double on the year, and the Nats last night, they beat the Marlins by a score of 2-0. They'll re-rack tonight at 6:45. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave will be at 6:15 on The Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Most excited you've been about a Washington season since, fill in the blank, 301-230-0980. I would say the most excited I've been, I think 2004. Coach Joe's return just felt like maybe the adults were back in the building and that there was a chance. Because by 2004, we knew what we were in store for ownership-wise. You know, the combination of Dan and Vinny, obviously, it was bleak. It was bleak at the end of the Spurrier season in 2003. And it was like, it's the master stroke of all Dan Snyder master strokes. And there was only one, and it was that one. Hiring Joe Gibbs, convincing Coach Joe to come back and coach his football team. There were other moments where I had a lot of hope, but nothing compared to, you know, the excitement of seeing Jaden in this team in year 2. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Joe in Springfield. Joe, the most excited you've been since when?
Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
Good, Joe.
So I know everybody keeps talking about, you know, Joe Gibbs returned in 2004 and we were hyped up, but I would say 2006 we were excited going into that because well, we just came up with 2005 and we'll come up with the 20th anniversary. But I mean, we won a playoff game. It wasn't pretty against the Buccaneers. We still won. And if Carlos Rodgers had not dropped that pick 6 against Seattle, we were going back to the NFC Championship. But Kevin, you and I have talked about this on so many occasions, on the air or in person, face to face. Al Saunders coming in during that off season was a question mark because, wait a minute, Joe Gibbs never gave a play calling. And that was like, to me, like, as much as I was excited about it, I was like, is there something we don't know about? So 2006 was exciting, but it just turned out to be disappointing, as we all know. So I would say 2006 was exciting, but also a question mark knowing that we brought in a different person to call plays in a Joe Gibbs era. So take care.
Yeah, Joe lost his confidence a little bit offensively. He started to believe that the game had maybe passed him by a little bit. And I felt like he was just, you know, getting his stride back in 2005. They were injured in those playoff games. But towards the end of the season, they had it going. The big problem with 2006 was the off season. They let Vinny and Dan get involved, and they went out and traded for, you know, Brandon Lloyd and Antoine Randall, and they signed Adam Marcelletta when, you know, football people were telling him, don't do that. You know, he's not this isn't the position he even plays that you want him to play. Remember, they traded for TJ Duckett, you know, during the training camp time frame. It was a disastrous off season, and Joe was still the coach. He was, but Joe let Dan and Vinny get involved in personnel way too much. He just did. Thanks, Joe, for that. Ross in Tampa, this is the most excited for a season you've been since.
Kevin, what's good in the hood? How you doing, man?
What's up, Ross?
So I got a confession to make. Back in 2004, I didn't know who Joe Gibbs was until he came back. You know, I was still like, maybe 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was hanging out with my dad back when he was winning all these Super Bowls, if you know what I mean. And they was telling me that this guy is the real deal. And then I love watching Clinton Portis. Growing up in Indy, I got to see Mark Brunell play, so I felt like those acquisitions are going to be like enough. And I also said, wherever Sean Taylor got drafted, I'm rooting for that team because I was kind of still with the Colts growing up there. But then when Sean Taylor went to Washington, that was my team. So it wasn't 2004. It was, for me, in 2006, what I had to look forward to is that they went to Indy and they played in Indy. And that game was the beginning of the end for Peyton Manning because I think it was Kendrick Golston who ripped him by the neck or whatever. But 2007 was the year in which I was excited. That was year 4 with Gibbs. It was like the offense is what it is, you know what I'm saying? Kind of like that 1980 style offense, but that defense, man, we just drafted LaRon Landry next to Sean Taylor. We obviously know how the season ended, but that was the one year that I was like, okay, this defense is going to lead us to the like promised land. But obviously, you know, that's not how it ended up. So that was my favorite year ever since.
Okay. That's an interesting choice because they were terrible in 2006, but 2007 ended up being, you know, the lowest of the lows for sure, and then just an incredible, you know, it was certainly inspired run at the end of the season. Let's go to Paulie. Paulie, most excited season since for you?
Good guy. Yeah, to the W, man. How you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah, man. Hey,
Season.
I'm going to say this. Man, it's here, baby. Let's go. I'm going to say this, man. Since 2024, last season, I'm going to tell you why, man. Because
I was excited to see the quarterback, no doubt.
Right. I come for the championship seasons like you. I went through the mediocrity of Norv Turner, then the whole debacle of Dan Snyder, you know, and then just the craziness of Ron Rivera. And I wasn't I was a Drake May guy, you know what I mean? Because I hadn't really seen too much of Jaden Daniels. But once we drafted him, and after drafting him and the build up to the season and watching all his highlights, I'm like, bro, if this dude what he is in college, we got one of the ones. So just the anticipation of Jaden and seeing him and him being the cornerstone of our franchise, man, I was really excited. For the first time in a long time, I have something real to be excited for and not just nostalgia of our past. I was excited for the present and the future. You know what I mean? And he proved everybody.
I hear you. I was definitely intrigued and excited, but not, you know what I thought of Jaden, and so I had high hopes that even his rookie season would be good. Not what it turned out to be. Clearly, no one could have predicted that. But yeah, it was. I didn't even think about last year. I was thinking about just the years in which it's like, man, we're going to be good. We are going to be good. Said, we have a chance to be really good. And I don't know if I felt that last year. Yeah.
I'm saying for me personally, I said, I didn't watch a lot of Jaden in his last year at LSU. Towards just the Heisman hype towards the end. But so after we drafted him and going through all his highlights, the whole offseason, just that build up, man. And then, he didn't let us down. So, yeah, man, I can't even talk right. I'm going home right now. I'm ready to go. I'm ready.
All right. Well, save it up. Baby. Save it up. We got 3 more days before the first NFL weekend. Although it starts Thursday night. I'll talk to you later in the week, I'm sure.
Hey, get your popcorn ready. Hail to the
That's
W.
right.
Get your popcorn ready. Hail to the W, man.
Thanks, Paulie. Let's go to DC. DC. This is the most excited you've been for a season since.
Man, great day, Kevin. How you feeling, man?
What's up, DC? How you doing, man?
Man, all is well. Man, y'all took my answer. Paulie took my answer. That's what I was gonna say. Since 2024, getting a coaching staff, new owner, it's people responsible running the team, the GM, all of those things. I've had faith in them since we started. People didn't have faith in Dan Quinn, but I would listen to his interviews, and he sounded like Joe Gibbs to me. Even with your interview, what you did with him last week, he gives the answers how he wants to give them, and he always is giving credit to the players or the fans and things like that. And then having Jaden come in, I have family from New Orleans, so I follow LSU, and I had seen what he could do, and I figured he would have a great year, but I didn't know it was going to be as good as it turned out. But, yeah, that's it since 2024, man, because of all of those things you said about
you and Paulie on the same page. Thanks, DC. Let's go to Stan. Stan, the most excited you've been for a season since when?
You know what? I can't say a season, man. I have to say the 80s, because I knew during the 80s, it was a foregone conclusion that we were going to make the playoffs, how far we're going to go. But the thing that I see, the NFC, as quiet as it's kept, man, is really stacked.
I agree.
They got some great teams. They got some great teams in the NFC. We still going to have a winning record, but not yet make the playoffs and what have you. I mean, you got some great teams, I think, coming up in the NFC. So it's going to be very competitive. I don't think Malik Neighbors going to drop a pass like he did last year. I don't think Dante Smith going to drop a pass like he did last year.
Maybe it won't come down to those plays. Maybe we'll be so good on offense, we'll have a 20-point lead late in the game.
But I'm afraid of my defense, man. I'm still not sold on them, man.
Yeah.
I'm still not sold on them. But we all have a winning record. and we're trending in the right direction. And that's where my excitement lies, that we're going in the right direction, and that's the main thing. After 30 years of ineptitude, we on the rise.
Stan, thanks for the call. Yeah, last year, keep in mind, a 10-7 Seattle team didn't make the postseason. The 7 seed, in the NFC playoffs was Green Bay at 11-6. I mean, the worst playoff team last year was 11-6. The NFC if it stays healthy, it's stacked. I agree with that. Ben Standig, next. Washington's got a veteran receiver in that they're working out. He'll tell you who it is when we come back. Football Talk on the Team 980 is presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but you can count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday, and CBS and Paramount Plus all season long will have it. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. Ben Standig is with us today because yesterday was a holiday and we were off. He is going to be with us every Monday and Friday during the season at 12 noon and maybe some days in between. So we are finally here the week before the season opener, and the team is working out a veteran wide receiver. Tell everybody who it is and whether or not there's, what the chances are they end up signing this player to the roster.
Yeah, Kendrick Bourne. He has been around the league for a minute. He entered the league as an undrafted free agent in 2017 with the 49ers when a young Adam Peters was just arriving in San Francisco as part of their front office. So he was there for 4 years, Bourne. So Peter certainly knows him. And, one thing that's been consistent with a lot of their moves, we always made fun of the Ron Rivera deal with this, everybody he ever met in Carolina coming here.
Right.
It's not too dissimilar, except it's not just one guy. It's Peters, it's Quinn, it's Kingsbury, it's everybody. And this one would be on the Peter side. So we'll see. Bourne is 30. He missed most of training camp with New England because of some injuries, but it sounds like from reports up there that he was, rounding back into shape and potentially could be ready for week one. Maybe not if he comes to a new team, but that's what it sounds like. He was kept initially on their 53, but then cut when because they had like 8 receivers and I guess they needed a spot. So he flew to San Francisco yesterday. Now he is here. If you make that cross-country trip, I'm assumption that this is where he wants to be, but until they announce anything, we'll see.
He tore his ACL in 2023. Has there been a more recent injury?
I just think it's, where I'm not actually sure to what degree the issue was. I did with those wear and tear stuff. I don't think it was anything like serious.
All right. If they add him, I was thinking about something, and I'm sure you've already started to pencil out the inactives for Sunday. But do you think there will be 4 running backs active on game day?
I think I would say yes right now. My only question would be, obviously we've talked a lot about, Eckler and Rodriguez and Bill from a, production/fantasy perspective. Jeremy McNichols, though, is probably their best pass blocker and, was helpful on special teams.
And plays special teams.
Yeah, right. So I think
he'll be active. Eckler will be active.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm saying I think it's 4 because I don't think that McNichols goes out. I mean, look, I'd be stunned even if they sign Bourne if he is active. I mean, he would only have practiced for a couple of days, and like I said, he was kind of inactive for from a lot of the summer. So yeah, you're right though. It becomes, where do you cut the line? Where do you draw the line? though? You can't have everybody up, obviously. What do you do? Of course, a lot will dictate, dependent on, some injury news. Is Noah Brown going to be good to go? Is Jordan McGee going to be able to play enough snaps? He was back at practice late, in recent days, but still, missed a chunk of time. Is he active, or do they decide to leave him down for a week or so? There's 10 defensive backs. Do they have all of them up, and so on? So yeah, there's definitely going to be some interesting choices that maybe we can flesh out more on Friday once we hear from Dan Quinn and get a sense of the injury report. But it's unconventional. I give you that, but the 4th guy in essence would be Krosky Merritt, and I just don't know that I'm seeing him inactive.
I just think after all of the Bill talk, it would be the reaction to him being inactive for the opener against the Giants would be interesting. Yeah, 4 running backs, and Eckler and McNichols are givens because of special teams. McNichols in particular, Eckler because he's going to be a big part of what they do. And then, yeah, I mean, for all the discussion about it's gonna be by committee with Bill and Rodriguez and Debo and Eckler. It's possible that part of the committee doesn't include one of those running backs on game day.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was also the Debo Samuel factor. He's going to get some work. So, like,
exactly.
If we ignore the individuals, logically, you would say, well, they don't really need to keep a 4th guy because Debo's there. Not to mention, a certain quarterback is going to be very active on the ground as well. But again, like you said, it would be bizarre if Krosky Merritt isn't up, and
assuming Dan Quinn was telling me the truth, he told me, he said the other day when I asked him about who's getting the short yardage work, and he said Chris Rodriguez is the guy they will likely lean into first. Makes sense. Eckler, obviously, we know what his role is. So, yeah, again, I think when your offense is lacking, has questions at receiver. I know the running backs aren't receivers, but in terms of just playmakers, that's probably where their strength is right now until we see, that Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown are able to get full reps, if not, just actually play. I think Terry's playing. Noah Brown is the more question there.
Yeah, I'm also wondering, is it possible that Eckler ends up taking Brian Robinson Jr.'s carries? He was they had him in the huddle on first downs before that first concussion. There were series where he was out there on 1st and 10. And yeah, he had that big run, and I'd have to go back and look, but I don't think it was, a third down situation, that long touchdown run early in the season against Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think an under-discussed part of this is that Austin Eckler was their best all-around running back last year, and
no doubt,
to sort of make it a clean path for him to play whenever you want. I mean, obviously the coaches can do whatever they want, but Brian Robinson, was there, so you had to use him in places where were his strengths. The thing with Eckler is, though, I still think less is more. You can't overwork him, which is, again, why I constantly keep saying I wish they wouldn't play him on kick returns. We'll see what they do. So, he could be the running back out there on the first play of the game, which is not the big deal to me, but, that could be the case. He'll certainly be the guy who's out there, you would think, in the last, 2-3 minutes of each half or the final drive if they're, needing a score. But again, at some point he's not going to. They just can't overwork him if they want to make it through a full year with him being as productive as possible down the stretch. And Rodriguez, let's see. I think that because we've talked so much about Bill and the Robinson trade happened so late in camp, Rodriguez went from he's probably not going to make the roster to, all right, wait, does he have the goods to be the lead back? We know he can. He's got power, consistency. He hasn't played enough to know that. And, we'll see if he can show them that.
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting. I did look it up. It was a 1st and 10, second quarter. Austin Eckler was in there as, the lead back in that Cincinnati game, ripped off a 24-yard touchdown run. Just going back to Kendrick Bourne for a moment, if they do sign him, I just want to make sure I'm clear on your thoughts on this. Do you think that means Noah Brown's not going to be ready to go?
By the way, he was dealing with a lower leg injury, and again, from what I've read, Kendrick Bourne. From what I read, it sounds like he was trending in the right direction. If New England kept him,
but he tore his ACL, I think, 2 years ago.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I don't. To me, this is not necessarily signing a Kendrick Bourne or a veteran receiver is not necessarily about Noah Brown in week one, because again, I would be surprised if you could play him, Kendrick Bourne, in week one, since he's only just getting here. Like if somehow Noah Brown were out, I would think that, if they want another receiver, that they bring up somebody from the practice squad. The issue, though, is if Noah Brown misses, whether it's week 1, week 6, week 10, I have no idea who they would play in his spot. We can say Jalen Lane all we want, but he's a 5'10" slot receiver that they would be moving outside. It might work, just like it did with Sanderson last year, moving him outside as a smaller corner, but that's an unknown. So right now they don't have anybody, and that's why I asked the other day of Peters, how comfortable are you with this room right now, considering Terry's only just getting back, Noah Brown has been out, and of course he said yes, very confident if we have to use any of these guys, including the practice squad guys. I think the rest of us do not feel that level of confidence based on what we've seen from Luke McCaffrey and the receivers who are at the practice squad. You can say whatever we want about Ja'Cory Brooks and what he might be. We didn't see it consistently enough in camp to say he can go out there and play against the Giants. So that to me is why they need to do something at this spot. I'm glad to see they were at least recognizing they need more depth. And if it's not Kendrick Bourne, maybe it's somebody else. But again, as we're talking, it feels like it could be Kendrick Bourne based on the fact that he's here.
Benton Standig joining us. He is our Washington insider on this show. He writes a Substack column as a reporter. It is worthy of subscribing. I am a subscriber. You can link to it at Ben Standig on X on Twitter.
Hey, by the way, Kevin, since you just mentioned that, just a quick plug, 20% off annual and monthly subscriptions through week 1. So a great time to jump in, the season starting. So come on, join me and Kevin.
Jump in now, take that discount just offered to not just my listeners, but anybody. Everybody's welcome to that 20%. And I had nothing to do with it. 20%. Ben covers the team. Most of you know this exceptionally well. He also, I think, thinks outside the box in very creative ways, as good as anybody does. Hence, a few weeks ago, calling the Brian Robinson Jr. not going to be on the week 1 roster shot long before anybody else did. All right. Let's just stick with the offense for one moment. Real quickly, 2 things. Offensive line, like the starters, right to left. And then is Mariota, I guess we'll find out tomorrow with the first injury report, is Mariota going to be ready to go on Sunday?
Yeah, if you're right on Mariota, we'll see. He was at least out there, again, now at practice, we only see the very basics, the stretching. So I can't say for sure what he did or didn't do. And at least now with an injury report, we'll get the whole, out limited, details, that type of deal. I'm assuming he'll be ready, but they did keep Josh Johnson. And I imagine that at least part of the reason was just in case Mariota wasn't. The offensive line, I mean, look, I think we, Tunsil, Coleman, Biotis, I think we've got those guys will be good. The right side is the question. I've been saying that I really wonder if Andrew Wiley ends up starting at guard, in that Nick Allegretti is essentially the backup center. I didn't think he had a very good summer. He was, fine, but I think they could upgrade there. And I'm not saying Wiley is an upgrade, but I think Wiley to me showed something there. So that would make sense. That way, if there was, this is planning for a rainy day, but if Tyler Biotis gets hurt, if Allegretti is at right guard, now you have to switch 2 positions instead of just 1. That said, do they feel comfortable enough with Josh Connerly at right tackle to say, okay, you're out there game 1, you're facing Brian Burns and all those defensive linemen that the Giants have, we'll help you out. We'll send John Bates your way a little bit, but you've got to be the guy. If they're not ready, don't think he's ready for that, then Wiley, may very well be back out there. He's obviously a veteran, has played the face of Giants now, multiple years. Perhaps it's a rotation at right tackle the way they did it a year ago with Coleman and Cornelius Lucas. To me, I would probably roll with Wiley and Connerly, but obviously they know more than I do. And again, this is a tough situation. The Giants' defensive line is, potentially one of the best in the league. They had Abdul Carter, the number 3 pick. Josh Connerly's already faced him in college, so there's some familiarity there if that matchup were to take place. But I think that's the question, is to me, is how comfortable they are with Connerly starting, and then if so, what does that, could that mean something different at right tackle, at right guard than maybe most have imagined?
All right, let's shift to defense. Is Trey Amos out on the field as a starting outside corner with Lattimore opposite him, with Sanders still being an inside slot nickel corner? Is that how you think it'll start? I mean, they may start in nickel, but do you think that's how it starts?
Yeah, I do. I think the interesting. I mean, Amos has looked, solid to better, to really good. Pretty much all camp. It just hasn't looked like a pro. It has not looked like a rookie. That said, if we're going to note that their outside receivers were not that good in camp, then we have to note that Trey Amos was covering them. So, he wasn't getting Terry McLaurin, day in and day out. He was getting Chris Moore and Luke McCaffrey and so on. So we'll see. But he's looked pretty good, to say at the least. I think the interesting part for me is, look, Joe Witt Jr. said several weeks ago that they would like to probably do more 4-3 lineups with a true third linebacker when other teams are going with sort of like obvious run personnel. If that means you only have 4 defensive backs, now who sits? I mean, is Sanders still sitting as the slot guy, or do they move him outside? I would imagine the answer is they stay with Amos and Lattimore, but Sanders still is obviously, one of their better defensive backs, if not defenders. So I think that to me is an interesting look. Again, they played more nickel coverage, nickel packages than every team in the league last year. So they're going to have 5 defensive backs out on the field a ton. It's just a matter of if it's going to be more lineups without a fifth defensive back who sits. That to me would be interesting.
Will Von Miller just be situational, pass rush situations only? It's pretty much what he did in Buffalo last year.
Yeah, he says can still do more. It's just how teams are using him. So I would kind of imagine the answer to that is yes. And look at he was still very efficient last year as a pass rusher, no argument. But he's 36 for a team that is now reached the contender status. It isn't just about of course you want to get off to a good start, but it's not about throwing everything you have in weeks 1, 2, 3. You've got to balance it out so that your older guys or any of your guys, but your older guys in particular, are fresh late, in the second half of the season. So yeah, I think Von Miller to me is sort of like the offensive equivalent of Eckler. He's going to be out there late in halves, rushing the quarterbacks, right? And he'll be out there in obvious passing downs. I don't think for a team that wants to do a much better job of stopping the run, I think that's more Dorrance Armstrong, Dietrich Wise, or playing with 3 tackles and somebody goes outside than it is lining up Von Miller.
All right, last one defensively. You've already mentioned this player's name. We know how much they like this player, Jordan McGee, who has not been able to make it onto the field because of injuries. But it's like I have this sense, and I'm wondering if you have the same sense. He's penciled in as the future middle linebacker, on this team already without ever having seen him play, more than a few downs in real games. Do you feel the same way? And if that's true, how much time will he get with Bobby Wagner still playing, at least last year, at a high level?
Well, I think that sense is true, but it's largely true because he was the player when Adam Peters explains how they are going to do things during the draft, and they have what they call it, the Commanders Caucus, where everybody kind of agrees on one of the day 3 picks, and Jordan McGee was the guy that they settled on last year, and he was the guy, other than Jaden Daniels, was the player that when I heard from people with other teams said to me, "Oh, I like that pick. That was a good pick by Washington." Big guy, athletic, so there is all that, but he's got to play. Obviously, last year injuries kind of wrecked things. He missed then a bunch of camp. This time with an injury, and obviously you got to get on the field. So sure, it feels that way, but that's just that. It's a feeling. It is not even based on a ton of practice reality. So we will see. But yeah, Wagner's going to play, most snaps. If McGee's going to get on the field, barring injury, it's not going to be at Mike linebacker. It'll be elsewhere. I do wonder if we do reach a point though. Jordan McGee shows he's a help in passing downs, either as a pass rusher or can help in coverage. Does that eventually mean fewer reps for Bobby Wagner in obvious passing downs? He's still an excellent player with great instincts, but the speed isn't what it was compared to his younger days. And I think some teams take advantage of that. So if Jordan McGee can help, then maybe that's the way to get him on the field in that role. But that to me would be more of a later in the season scenario.
Yeah. That'll be an interesting thing to watch, because sometimes, even though this player has had a ton of things said about him before we really know, that kind of belief, they're too excited to keep him off the field if he's healthy, so that they can show what he can do, because he can impact these games. But Wagner had one hell of a year last year, that's for sure. But he is 35, 36 years old. Lastly, Jalen Lane on punts. I think that's a given, correct? On punt returns?
Based on what we have seen, that would be the logical conclusion, yes.
And then on kickoff returns, remember everybody, the rules changed again this year. The touchbacks don't come out to the 30, they'll come out to the 35. That is going to increase significantly the number of returns. More teams will aim for that landing zone between the 20 and the goal line. You got to have 2 guys back on kickoff returns, because those kicks are low and they're coming in, trying to hit, in that landing zone area. Who are the two kickoff returners? Is it Lane and Eckler? Is it Lane and Rodriguez? Who are the two kickoff returners? Do you know?
No, I mean, the guys they had most prominently in the preseason are not on the team anymore, and Kaz Allen and Demetric Felton. The guys who were typically, like in practice, the next pair to go were Austin Eckler and Deebo Samuel. Even if they're out there, I can't imagine either of those guys being out there like all the time. I can see Deebo, while I'm saying don't put Eckler out there to not overuse him, I would kind of say the same thing with Deebo based on his, he plays so hard, he runs so hard, but that could be another way to get him the ball, not just out of the backfield, but back there. And then there's the McNichols part of this, right? If you're keeping him, I could see where, with Lane back there, like McNichols sort of acting like the lead blocker, assuming that Lane can get his hands on the ball. And if not, then obviously McNichols being a running back, should be competent enough to be there. So that would be my sort of guess. There's also Luke McCaffrey. It won't surprise me if that's how they figure out a way to get him, maybe just some positive momentum, put him out on special teams. We saw him have some success last year as a returner. But, Lane, McNichols, that kind of feels right to me if they keep four. But other than Lane, I think the other part is the other person is a little more unclear at this moment.
All right. You want to save your season prediction for Friday's show?
Yeah, let me build up the stress of you asking me that and me having to give an answer you're going to hold over my head for the rest of the year. So
it's going to be an answer that you guys out there aren't going to like. I can tell you that. I've sensed that all summer.
I don't know.
Right, I'll talk to you Friday. Thanks.
See ya. Yep.
Ben Standig, everybody. Now is the best time of the year to buy new windows, and my recommendation is Window Nation. Whether you have old drafty windows or cheaper builder grade windows, September's the perfect month to protect your home from cooler weather, which is right around the corner. And right now, Window Nation is offering their most popular offer of the year. Buy 2 windows, get 2 for free, pay nothing for 2 years. No down payment, no monthly payments, and no interest for 2 years. You won't pay anything. They are giving you the option to not pay anything until the year 2027, all the while saving big on air conditioning and heating bills. Did I mention their installation crews can replace a house full of windows in a day or less? Yeah, they're that efficient. With Window Nation, you get top quality windows from a trusted company, all at a reasonable price, because they know replacing windows is an investment and they want to make it affordable for you. Don't miss out on Window Nation's most popular offer. Buy 2, get 2 free. Don't pay anything for 2 full years. Hurry, this opportunity, this sale won't last forever. Call them now at 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com to get your free in-home, no obligation estimate.
5 receivers in the pattern. Malik Washington heaves this one wide open. Touchdown! Shalik Knox all alone.
It was because of this offensive line. Watch this. Look at this right here. Nothing around him. He's able to process the thing, see it, slow things down. Ball right on the money. That was a nice series by Malik Washington.
Saw the right.
Joe Beninati, Matt Millen on Saturday's call of Maryland's season opening win over Florida Atlantic 39-7 is heard right here on your home for Maryland football. The Team 980. Malik Washington, a highly sought after and landed prospect starting as a true freshman. Malik Washington, 6'5", 230 pounds, and he can sling it. It was a slow start, as you would expect from a true freshman in his first game, but ultimately he opened up, and the team did a can of you-know-what on Florida Atlantic. They picked off Florida Atlantic quarterbacks 6 times, the most interceptions in a game for Maryland since 1998. Malik Washington was 27 of 43 for 258, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Maryland rolled 39-37. Look, anytime you are +6 in the turnover margin, you better win by like 39-7. But it was promising. Malik Washington was promising. I thought he threw the ball well. I thought he stood tall. He created more time. He looks the part. It's one game. It's Florida Atlantic. And Maryland did that thing they've done for the last several years where they commit more penalties than it seems like any team in the country. 14 for 100. I think they were on pace for the most penalties, or were really close for the most penalties called on a team in the first quarter of a game in NCAA history. They had 8 in the first quarter. But they defended. They played good special teams. And they had a nice win to open up the season. Week 1, just like in the NFL, can be a big-time head fake. It really can. And Maryland was 7-7 at the end of the first quarter. But I thought Malik Washington looked good. I thought that he looked the size. He threw it well. It's going to be hard, in this freshman year because there will be some up and down moments, but it was a good start. They've got Northern Illinois Friday night in College Park. No excuses on a Friday night 7:30 kick not to go to the games. I understand Texas, Ohio State at noon on opening day on Saturday. Maryland was playing at noon as well, but hopefully they can get some people out to College Park to see the game against Northern Illinois, a team who, remember, was it last year that they knocked off Notre Dame early in the season? Was that when they knocked off Notre Dame?
NIU last year? Yeah.
Yeah, it was like week 1 or week 2.
It was like I think it was week 3 or something. It was a crazy game.
Yeah, and remember, Notre Dame was in the national championship game early in the season. NFL, college football, same thing. Sometimes you really don't know. But a good win for the Terps for sure on opening day. And more so, just the promise of a young, true freshman quarterback, because that's what was missing last year. After 3 straight seasons of 7-8 wins and bowl wins with Lia Tagovailoa, last year was a no quarterback year. I mean, Billy Edwards just wasn't what Lia was, but they've got some promise at quarterback. Elsewhere, and I'm going to get to the big games, but on Sunday afternoon, Virginia Tech hung in there until there was an 80-yard punt return in the fourth quarter. They were 10-8 at that time. What we saw in some of these bigger matchups over the weekend was more defensive football, defense ahead of offense this time of year. Drones, the quarterback for Virginia Tech, I thought looked, uncomfortable at times. South Carolina's a good defensive team, and South Carolina pulled away and won that game 24-11. Going back to Saturday, though, the anticipation offseason for Texas and Ohio State. Look, the game was a bit of a dud. I mean, the defenses were good, but I think it was more about the quarterbacks not being good. Arch Manning had a rough start to his supposed Heisman Trophy campaign season. One thing to keep in mind with college football, college basketball to a lesser degree, 5 stars usually turn out to be really good. In football, there are plenty of 5 stars that don't amount to anything. So take, that with a grain of salt. Yeah, they were great in high school. And Arch got some time last year and looked the part a couple of times. I thought, and I watched this game start to finish, I thought, number one, I thought Steve Sarkisian was way too conservative with his play calling. And maybe there was a reason for that. Maybe he wasn't confident in Arch Manning's readiness for Ohio State in that atmosphere in a 1 versus 2 game, at least according to the coaches poll. I thought Arch looked tight, looked nervous. His footwork was all messed up on throws. He's throwing off his back foot. The timing was all off. They ran the football well, and that got him back into an opportunity to give Arch Manning one more chance with the football late down 14-7. Ohio State's quarterback, Julian Sayin, in his first start, I didn't think was much better. Again, what do we know after week 1? Very little. Notre Dame, struggling last year at home, losing to Northern Illinois. They ended up in the national championship game. Long way to go. I certainly would not throw in the towel on Arch Manning, but it was a rough day, and I'm not sure anybody trended more this weekend than Arch Manning did. Ohio State won the game 14-7. That's a big win for them. They don't get a real game for another month, really 5-6 weeks. They'll go to Illinois in mid-October. Illinois is ranked in the top 15. Meantime, Texas with a couple of easy games as well to get Arch Manning hopefully some rhythm against San Jose State this week, and then UTEP and Sam Houston before they have to go to the Swamp and face Florida in early October. The other big game on Saturday, well, there are 2 others, but I'll start with the night game between LSU and Clemson. I had Stanford Steve on last week. Denton's going to come on with us every Thursday to talk college football and preview the upcoming weekend. I've just not been a Cade Klubnik guy. I know what his stats were last year. Every time against good opponents, I saw a guy that didn't process very quickly. He could improve. It's possible, but that was his big issue. He was not good against LSU. He's very slow in processing. He doesn't feel the pressure, and LSU's defense was the best it's been in years. And that was a test for Klubnik and Clemson. Garrett Nussmeier, on the other hand, is another guy that's projected to go very high in the draft. Look, he does see it, and he does feel it. As a passer, he just doesn't have great athleticism. Klubnik does, and he'll need it to be an effective quarterback. But big win for LSU. And to be honest with you, this was a game. Final score was 17-10. It felt like a 27-10 game. LSU, to me, was the better team for the majority of the night. They had more yards. They had almost twice the number of first downs. They had a touchdown overturned by replay that I thought was horrible. They dominated time of possession. And Brian Kelly gets a season-opening win for the first time at LSU. They had lost to Florida State twice. They had lost to USC. They needed that game. Are the polls out yet? Have we seen the updated polls? Because I think LSU could. I don't think LSU jumps to number 1, but LSU is going to easily jump into the top 3 after that win. I would guess. Maybe Ohio State's number 1, but I thought that was a better football game in a low-scoring game than the Ohio State-Texas game was. And then the game that preceded LSU-Clemson was Florida State and Alabama. Man, Kalen DeBoer, he is in trouble. Right? Has to be. That team didn't look like it had anywhere near the urgency or the effort or the competitiveness. Florida State, completely different team. I love that quarterback that they got from BC. I thought he was awesome. They've got speed. They've got playmaking ability. They were awesome on defense, and they destroyed Alabama 31-17. Alabama marched right down the field to open up the game with Ty Simpson replacing Jalen Milroe. And I think Simpson I think they're going to be okay with Simpson. I think he is a better thrower of the football than Jalen Milroe. And he is athletic, not Jalen Milroe, athletic. But, man, Bama getting whooped by Florida State in the revamped, renovated Doak Campbell down in Tallahassee. That place was insane. They get a couple of games here. They get UL Monroe in Wisconsin in Tuscaloosa, and then September 27th at Georgia. We'll see what Georgia is, but the natives are restless in Bama country. There is no doubt about that. And then Sunday night's matchup between Notre Dame and Miami, that was a really good football game. Denton and I got in this argument during the last couple of years. I actually think Carson Beck looks like an NFL quarterback to me. And I think he processes quickly, and I think he can sling it. This guy can make every throw. Now, he's got a lot going on intangible-wise that people question, but I thought he was outstanding against Notre Dame on Saturday night. And I thought Miami really came out and played exceptional football. They held on. I thought they got way too conservative there at the end. I mean, Cristobal and his management of the game, the clock, he's a disaster. There were several disastrous situations this weekend. Dion on Friday night or Thursday night, Dion completely butchered the clock at the end of the game, took 2 timeouts with him into the locker room. I'm just moronic stuff. He's not very good at that at all. Brian Kelly in the game against Clemson at the end of the first half didn't use his timeouts, then called his last one with the clock stopped. And then on 4th and 2 with 15 seconds to go, decided to go for it, even though if he had made it, they were still going to have to kick a field goal more likely than not. And they got stopped, and they took 3 points off the board. There was a lot of that over the weekend. Amazing we see that still to this day. But you see it every weekend. But I thought Miami and Carson Beck in particular was really impressive. I think he's an NFL quarterback. Denton will fight me on that. He does not think he is. He can throw it. I think he can throw it as good as anybody in the country. I think Carson Beck has a great arm, and I think he looks the part in the pocket. There are a lot of intangible things about him, his leadership, etc., his work ethic. There's been a lot of things that, people have questioned about him. But, man, Miami looked good. And, again, Notre Dame recovered from an early season loss last year and made the national championship. 12-team playoff now, so there are lots of opportunities to bounce back from opening weekend losses that are disappointing. And that would include certainly Texas as well. But, highly anticipated week 1 because we had so many really good matchups. And, defensive games. That Texas-Ohio State game couldn't wait to watch it. And then really it was like, when is this game going to get started? And I like defensive low-scoring games, but I thought that was as much about some of the inept quarterback play. And Sarkisian really didn't give Arch a lot of opportunities. Seemed very conservative, but maybe he knew something we didn't know. And that was that he maybe didn't think Arch Manning was ready for that stage. He didn't look like he was ready. Week 2, and we'll do a preview with Denton on Thursday, but not the same number of attractive matchups on paper. You get a lot of the big-time top-ranked schools playing the Florida Internationals and the San Jose States and the Sam Houstons of the world. But still, football from Thursday through last night. Of course, last night, we talked about that at the very beginning of the show. Belichick, not a great debut. That is for sure. TCU and that quarterback, Josh Hoover, looks good. When we come back, Tom Brady talked about the quarterback that he thinks is the greatest thrower of the football in NFL history. You'll hear what he said when we return. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. We're free and live on the Odyssey app. You can watch us on the Team 980 YouTube channel. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button when you get there. And this last segment that we just went through was sponsored by Staples. Your local Staples has hot deals and super low prices throughout the store on everything for your business. And right now at Staples, you can save up to $125 off your print order. Exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/print for details. Ends 9/13. You can save even more at Staples.
He's not in the studio, so I got to make.
All right. Post Labor Day, here we are, Tuesday, September 2nd. Coming off a packed Labor Day weekend, the Commanders are hosting wide receiver Kendrick Bourne on a free agent visit. They are the second team he has visited in as many days after a visit to San Francisco yesterday. We'll find out hopefully a little bit more information as the day rolls on. Bill Belichick's college debut last night did not go the way that he or Jordan or any UNC fan for that matter had hoped. They fall 48-14 to Texas Christian University, the Horned Frogs. Maryland football has found their quarterback. A bit of a slow start for true freshman Malik Washington, but really found his groove in the second quarter with all 3 touchdown passes coming in before halftime. Such a great day for him that he didn't even need to see the field in the fourth quarter. Maryland wins 39-7. The Mystics, they fall to the Sparks over the weekend, 81-78. Rookies continue to shine as Kiki Ariafin notched her 15th double-double on the year. And the Nats, they beat the Marlins by a score of 2-0 yesterday. They will re-rack tonight at 6:45. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:15 on The Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
My buddy, who is a diehard Ohio State fan and was at the game in Columbus on Saturday, my buddy Ted said Julian Sand looked much better than Manning. Did not help that 3 of his passes were dropped. The defensive game plan that Matt Patricia is the D coordinator for Ryan Day in Columbus. The game plan he put together is a major reason why Manning did not look good. He was completely confused. All right. You know what? Ohio State was awesome on defense, and Arch Manning didn't look good. He looked tight. He looked nervous. Footwork was all wrong. Everything looked wrong. I thought, again, Sarkisian didn't call the best of games. By the way, Brian Dable is going to start Russell Wilson. I think everybody knows that. If you don't know it already, Jackson Dart, the first-round pick, is really more right now in development. A lot of people think Jackson Dart will end up playing this season, but Russell Wilson will be the starter Sunday. And the question really to Brian Daboll in recent days has been about the backup. Will it be Jameis Winston or Jackson Dart? And Daboll today or late yesterday refused to give that information out. So we will know Sunday when we see the inactive list. I don't know if they'll have 3 active. They probably won't because you've got the emergency QB thing. But we'll know who the backup is then. Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston on the same team with Jackson Dart, the first-round pick. But Russell Wilson going to start. Obviously, he won for Pittsburgh as the starting quarterback in Landover last year in that game that ended 28-27. This was Tom Brady on Chris Collinsworth's. I don't know if Collinsworth has a show on a network or if this is a podcast, but listen to what Tom Brady said about who he thinks is the greatest passer in NFL history.
Aaron Rodgers. Probably the swan song, right? Who knows what could happen, but nobody would understand where he is in his 40s now better than you. And what do you think he has to do to have that great walk-off moment that you had?
It's a great question. And it's Aaron's proven that he's won a Super Bowl, many championship games. He's a winner. And I think what I've always appreciated about him, what everybody does, is his ability to throw a football and pass it. It's like in Aaron in his prime, to me, is the greatest passer of the football the league's ever seen. He could get the ball from point A to B faster and more accurate than any player, I think, in the history of the NFL.
That's not a crazy thing. There are a lot of people that would put Aaron Rodgers very near the top of the list. He certainly is one of the greatest throwers of the football in NFL history. Hearing that from the GOAT, emphasizes how much he deserves that. For me, it's Marino. Marino's the greatest thrower of the football I have ever seen in my lifetime of watching. Now, I did not see Sonny Jurgensen in his heyday, in the 60s. Some people will say that Sonny spun the ball better than anybody. Namath, apparently one of the greatest throwers of the football of all time. But for me, in my, adult life of watching football, Marino is the greatest passer I've ever seen. He has the quickest release. He's the most accurate. Ball point A to point B, as Brady pointed out, got there, and it got there on target and with no wobble to it at all. Rodgers is in the conversation, though. He is definitely in the conversation. I think guys like Warren Moon, are in that conversation. Dan Fouts. I'll tell you what, Kurt Warner, one of the great throwers of the football in NFL history. Warner, I always felt, and I'm glad he's in the Hall of Fame, because there was a debate many people, had about Warner, but he absolutely deserved to be a Hall of Fame entrant. And I think Warner is one of the greatest throwers of the ball of all time. But for me, Marino won, and then we can debate who's two. Sonny's in the conversation in terms of pure passers, but Brady, the GOAT, says it's Rodgers who's the greatest pure passer of all time. All right, back tomorrow. Lots of predictions, lots of picks for the upcoming season. We'll have it all tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. Chris Russell's next.